The first knock came at 6012 on a Saturday
Are
morning,
you
not because
kidding
someone
me
needed
with
help,
this?
not because there was an emergency,
This is an
but because
official
3 members of
notice.
my HOA had decided they no longer needed my permission to decide what happened on my own land. By sunset, they would tell every homeowner that I'd lost my voting rights. By the following week, bulldozers would be parked beside my fence. And before the month was over, the same people who laughed while holding their secret meeting would be standing in a courtroom watching a judge ask one question that destroyed everything they had built. If the vote was legal, why did you hide it? That question cost them millions. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 46 years old and I own 72 acres just outside Cedar Ridge, Texas. My grandfather bought the land after returning from Vietnam, and my father spent 40 years turning it into one of the nicest cattle ranches in the county. When he passed away, every inch of that property became my responsibility. Most people imagine Texas ranches as endless empty fields, but ours was alive. A long gravel driveway stretched from the county road to a weathered red barn. White wooden fences divided the cattle pastures. 2 ponds reflected the sunrise every morning, while live oak trees shaded the front porch of the farmhouse. I raised Black Angus cattle, boarded a few horses for neighbors, and leased part of the pasture during hay season. It wasn't a fortune, but it paid the bills, and more importantly, it was home. For years, nobody bothered us. Then Cedar Ridge estates expanded. What had once been a quiet subdivision of 50 homes became more than 200. Expensive brick houses replaced open fields. Golf carts appeared everywhere. Suddenly, everyone had opinions about how my ranch looked from their backyard patios. The HOA became stronger with every new house they approved. At first, they stayed on their side of the fence. Then they started sending letters. The first complaint claimed my hay bales were visually disruptive. The second complained about the smell of cattle after rain. Another demanded I replace my red barn because it didn't match the subdivision's modern architectural standards. I laughed every single time. Their neighborhood rules stopped exactly where my deed began, or so I thought. One evening, my neighbor, Mike Reynolds, drove his old pickup down my gravel road. "You got a minute?" he asked. Mike had lived beside me for 15 years. Unlike most newcomers, he respected ranch life. We sat on the porch while the sun disappeared behind the pasture. "You hear about Thursday night?" I shook my head. "Hear about what? The HOA board meeting? I don't attend those." "You should have." His expression worried me. "They talked about your land?" I leaned forward. "My land?" Mike nodded slowly. "They're saying your property should be included inside the association." I laughed. "That's impossible." "I know. No covenant. No agreement. No annexation." "No, I know." "So what's the problem?" Mike looked toward my fence before lowering his voice. "They say they found paperwork." My stomach tightened. "What paperwork?" "They didn't say." I didn't sleep much that night. The next Monday, I drove to the county clerk's office. Every deed, every easement, every survey, everything matched exactly what I'd inherited from my father. No AA restrictions, no amendments, nothing. The clerk even smiled. "Mr. Carter, your property's been independent since 1984. I thanked her and drove home feeling ridiculous for worrying, until Wednesday. A certified envelope waited inside mailbox. The return address read Aridi Istadios Omo Manars Associado. I opened it standing beside my truck. Off-board a few AM. According to the letter, the HOA had officially voted to recognize my ranch as part of the subdivision due to historical community integration. They listed annual dues, architectural requirements, livestock limitations, noise restrictions, even landscaping rules. Then came the sentence that made me read it 3 times. The board approved this action by unanimous vote. I laughed out loud. Then I got angry. They couldn't simply vote themselves ownership over someone else's property. I drove straight to the HOA office. The building looked more like a model home than an office. Fresh landscaping, stone entrance, polished windows, and a flag fluttering above the parking lot. Inside, the receptionist smiled politely. "I'm here to see the board president. Do you have an appointment?" "New? Her schedule is full." I placed the letter on the counter. "Tell her Daniel Carter is here." 5 minutes later, HO President Linda Marshall appeared. She looked exactly like someone who had never heard the word no. Perfect blonde hair, pressed navy blazer, pearl necklace, an expensive smile that disappeared the moment she recognized me.
Mr.
"Carter, we need to talk. I'm afraid board decisions are final. You voted my ranch into your HOA, correct? You don't own my land. We'll believe the documents support our decision. Then show me." "I'm not authorized to release board materials." "Why? They're confidential." I stared at her. "You held a meeting about my property."
Less.
"Without inviting me." "Correct." "Then refused to show me the documents." She folded her arms. "The board followed proper procedures." "Who voted?" "I'm not discussing internal matters." "I'll ask differently." I held up the letter. "Where did these documents come from?" "They're part of association records. I want copies. You may submit a written request." "I just did." She smiled again. "Request denied." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally asked, "Is this some kind of joke?" "No. You honestly believe your HOA controls 72 acres because 6 people voted in a private room? We believe the law supports us." "Then I'll see you in court?" Her smile didn't change. "We expected that." That sentence stayed with me the entire drive home. They expected it, meaning they'd planned for it, meaning this wasn't some spontaneous mistake. Someone had convinced them they were untouchable. The following morning, another surprise arrived. A construction company parked 3 orange survey stakes beside my western fence. I walked over. A young foreman introduced himself. "We're marking future walking trail access." What walking trail? A HOA project. There is no HOA project here. He frowned and checked his paperwork. This parcel. He pointed directly at my pasture. I looked at the map. My property was highlighted in yellow. Who gave you this? The Homeowners Association. You need to leave. We've got authorization? No, not from me. We were told ownership had been resolved. I pulled my wallet from my pocket and showed him my driver's license. My name is Daniel Carter. He nodded. I own this ranch. His confidence vanished. Let me call my supervisor. 10 minutes later, every truck left, but the survey stakes remained in the ground. I pulled each one out myself. By afternoon, pictures of me removing them had somehow appeared on the neighborhood Facebook page. The comments were unbelievable. Finally, someone is standing up to that ranch. He always thought he was above community rules. Can't wait for the trail. He shouldn't own all that land anyway. Someone even wrote, the HOA voted. He lost. Lost what? A vote I'd never been allowed to attend. That evening my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Mr. Carter. Yes. My name is Sarah Bennett. I'm an attorney. I know who you are. She specialized in property law. I've been contacted by 2 homeowners inside Cedar Ridge. My eyebrows rose. They contacted you. About what? They believe the HOA held an executive session that violated both its own bylaws and state law. I sat down on the porch. What exactly happened? They won't speak over the phone. Why not? They're afraid. Afraid of who? The board. I looked toward the distant subdivision where porch lights were beginning to glow across hundreds of expensive homes. Fear didn't make sense. Not over a homeowners association. Unless whatever happened during that meeting was far worse than a simple vote. Sarah continued. They said something else. What? The meeting minutes don't match what actually happened. A chill ran through me. How different? They claimed there wasn't a unanimous vote. I stood up. What are you saying? I'm saying someone may have rewritten the record. For the first time since this started, I stopped thinking about annoying neighbors. This wasn't about landscaping anymore. If official records had been changed, if votes had been hidden, if documents had been manipulated, then this fight had just become something much bigger than an HOA trying to control a ranch. And I had a feeling someone inside that board was getting desperate enough to make another mistake. The next morning, I met Sarah Bennett at her office just off the county square. She wasn't the kind of attorney who tried to impress people with expensive furniture or dramatic speeches. Her office was simple. Stacks of property records covered one wall, framed survey maps covered another, and every shelf held thick binders filled with county cases going back decades. She looked up as I walked in. You brought the letter. I handed it to her. She read it once. Then she read it again. Finally, she looked at me. They actually sent this. Certified mail. She slowly set it on her desk. Either they're incredibly confident, or they have no idea what they've done. I've been trying to figure out which. She opened a legal pad. Let's start from the beginning. For nearly an hour I explained everything. The complaints. The secret meeting. Linda Marshall refusing to show me documents. The construction company. The survey stakes. The Facebook posts. When I finished, Sarah remained quiet for several seconds. What's wrong? I asked. I've handled OA cases for 16 years. And I've never seen one try to claim an entire ranch without recorded covenants. So they can't. They can claim anything they want. She smiled slightly. She opened the county GI's map on her computer. There. She pointed to my 72 acres. See this? I nodded. No HOA filing, no annexation, no amended plat, no restrictive covenant. She zoomed out. The subdivision ends exactly here. Her finger stopped at my fence line. They're trying to move a legal boundary with a board vote. I laughed. That's insane. It is. But we still have to prove it. Before I could respond, her assistant knocked on the door. Sarah. What is it? A man dropped this off. It was a plain brown envelope with no return address. Inside was a USB drive. Nothing else. Sarah frowned. No note. The assistant shook her head. Sarah plugged the drive into an isolated office computer. One video file appeared. The timestamp matched the night of the OA's so-called unanimous vote. She pressed play. The footage was shaky, like it had been secretly recorded with a phone hidden inside a shirt pocket. The HOA board sat around a polished conference table. Linda Marshall sat at the head. Beside her were Treasurer Greg Collins, Secretary Melissa Grant, and 3 other board members. Linda spoke first. If this passes, the association gains direct control over future development. Greg looked uneasy. We don't actually own the Carter property. We will after the vote. Melissa whispered. Our attorney hasn't approved this. Linda answered coldly. Our attorney doesn't need to know until afterward. Sarah paused the video. She looked at me. Did you hear that? I nodded slowly. She played it again. Our attorney doesn't need to know until afterward. Then the discussion became even worse. One board member cleared his throat. Shouldn't Daniel be notified? Linda immediately replied. If he's here, he'll object. Another member said, so we're intentionally excluding him. Linda leaned back. The room went silent. Sarah looked horrified. Keep playing? I whispered. The vote began. Linda voted yes. Greg voted no. Melissa voted no. 1 member abstained. 2 voted yes. Sarah paused at 3 yes. She counted again. 2 no. 1 abstention. I stared at her. That's not unanimous. Anew. It barely passed. She hit play 1 more time. Linda stood up. The official minutes will reflect unanimous approval. The recording ended. Neither of us spoke. Finally, Sarah leaned back. This changes everything. I felt my heartbeat speeding up. It certainly looks that way. And they mailed me a letter claiming unanimous approval. Sarah nodded. If this video is authentic, They're finished. She wasn't ready to celebrate. Was still have to prove chain of custody. Before leaving, she made 3 copies of the file and immediately contacted a digital forensic expert. I don't trust accidents, she said. Neither did I. By lunchtime, news of the mysterious video had already reached someone inside Cedar Ridge. I knew because Linda called me herself. Her voice sounded different, less confident. Massar. Carter, what do you want? I think we should meet. I thought board decisions were final. A long pause. There may have been misunderstandings. I'm done talking. I believe this matter can be resolved privately. You had your chance. She lowered her voice. We're willing to withdraw the notice. That's generous. I'll also recommend waiving all future assessments. I almost laughed. You still think this is about dues? Silence. You tried to claim my ranch? Wu believed. I interrupted her. You planned it. She took a deep breath. You don't understand the larger picture. Then explain it. Another pause. The subdivision is expanding. I know. The developer needs additional recreational space. My stomach tightened. There it is. The truth. She didn't answer. I continued. You weren't trying to enforce rules. Knew you wanted my land. Again, silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. You should think carefully before starting a public fight. Then she hung up. I immediately called Sarah. She sighed. They're scared. Good. New. She corrected me. Scared people make dangerous decisions. That warning proved accurate the very next morning. I woke to barking dogs. My border collies, Scout and Daisy, almost never barked without reason. I grabbed my boots and stepped onto the porch. A black SUV was parked beside my front gate. 2 men wearing reflective safety vests stood near the fence taking measurements. I walked toward them. Moan looked up. We're conducting a utility assessment on future infrastructure. On whose authority? The Homeowners Association.
Yeah.
I folded my arms.
You got 5 seconds.
The older man frowned. We have paperwork. I have a deed. He hesitated. This isn't private anymore. I stepped closer. It has been private since 1984. The younger worker quietly lowered his measuring wheel. I think we should leave. The older man wasn't convinced. Our supervisor. I pointed toward the county road. Now. They packed up without another word. As they drove away, I noticed something. The SUV had no company logo, no business name, nothing. Just temporary paper plates. That afternoon, Mike Reynolds stopped by again. You've got company. 3 homeowners stood behind him. They looked nervous. I'll leave you folks alone, Mike said. One woman stepped forward. My name is Emily. The older man beside her introduced himself as Robert. The third man simply said, I'm Tom. Emily held a folder tightly against her chest. We voted against this. I blinked. You voted? We're not board members. She shook her head. But homeowners were asked to sign a petition months ago. What kind of petition? They said it was for a community walking trail. Robert sighed. We never saw the final version. Tom opened the folder. Inside were copies of the original petition. The title read Community Greenway Feasibility Study. Nothing mentioned annexing private property. Nothing mentioned my ranch. Nothing authorized the HOA to take legal action. Emily looked embarrassed. They changed it. Sarah had been right. This wasn't just a secret vote. It was becoming a pattern. Hidden meetings. Altered minutes. Misleading petitions. Unauthorized surveys. Everything pointed in one direction. Deliberate deception. Before they left, Robert stopped beside my truck. You should know something else. What? The board keeps talking about a file. What file? They call it. He looked around before whispering, the legacy package. What is that? We don't know. Emily answered quietly. But Linda keeps saying, once the legacy package is recorded, your ranch belongs to the association forever. That phrase stayed with me all night, the legacy package. It sounded less like a legal document and more like a plan that had been waiting for years. The following morning, Sarah called before sunrise. Her voice was calm, but urgent. The forensic examiner finished early. And the meeting video hasn't been edited. I smiled. So it's real. But that's not why I'm calling. Oh, my smile faded. What happened? The examiner found something hidden in the video's metadata. What? Sarah took a slow breath. The recording wasn't made inside the conference room. I frowned. Then where? It was transmitted. She paused. From a security camera that shouldn't have existed. And whoever installed that camera may have recorded every secret board meeting for the past 3 years. I stared at my phone for several seconds after Sarah told me about the hidden security camera. Every meeting, I finally asked. If the camera stayed active, she replied, it could contain years of recordings. Who installed it? We don't know. But someone inside that building wanted insurance. Sarah immediately filed an emergency request with the court to preserve every electronic record owned by the HOA. If those files disappear now, she said, it becomes evidence. By noon, something strange happened. Linda Marshall resigned, not publicly, not officially. She simply stopped answering emails, canceled every scheduled board meeting, and disappeared. The HOA website suddenly displayed one sentence. Board business has been temporarily suspended. That alone told us we were getting close. Then Mike Reynolds called. You need to get over here? Where? Our office. I drove straight there. County sheriff's deputies surrounded the parking lot. A locksmith was changing every exterior lock. Deputy Carson recognized me. Morning. Carter, what's going on? We received a report. What kind? Possible destruction of business records. Inside the lobby, officers photographed overflowing trash bags. Shredded documents covered the conference room floor. Computer hard drives had been removed. File cabinets stood open. Someone had clearly panicked. One deputy carried out a desktop computer. Another held a stack of burned papers recovered from a metal fire pit behind the building. Sarah arrived a few minutes later. She looked around and quietly said, "They're destroying evidence." Before anyone could say another word, a county investigator walked toward us holding a small steel lockbox. "We found this hidden above the ceiling tiles." He placed it on the conference table. Inside were several USB drives, a notebook, and one envelope labeled LGA PK. Sarah carefully opened it. The first page made both of us stop breathing. It wasn't a legal document, it was a development proposal, prepared 5 years earlier. Its title read Future Expansion Strategy. Cedar Ridge Estates. The proposal explained everything. The developer wanted a private recreation complex, walking trails, a fishing lake, luxury cabins, a new clubhouse. The problem? Half the project sat directly on my ranch. One paragraph was highlighted. Acquisition through purchase unlikely. Alternative administrative methods should be explored. Sarah turned the page. The next sentence made my blood run cold. Long-term objective: bring Carter Ranch under HOA governance before pursuing redevelopment. I looked at her. So this started years ago. She nodded. They've been planning this almost from the beginning. Then we found handwritten notes. Linda's handwriting appeared beside one paragraph. Need unanimous vote on paper. Another note read, keep Daniel uninformed until filing complete. There was no misunderstanding anymore, no gray area. No confusion. This had been planned carefully, deliberately over several years. Within 48 hours, Sarah filed suit. The lawsuit named Linda Marshall, every board member who approved the false records, the HOA, the property management company, and the original developer. The claims included fraud, conspiracy, falsification of corporate records, slander of title, trespass, and attempted unlawful interference with private property rights. The county judge granted an emergency injunction the same afternoon. Every construction project stopped immediately. Every HOA record was frozen. Every board member received a court order prohibiting them from destroying additional evidence. News spread through Cedar Ridge faster than wildfire. Television vans appeared outside the subdivision. Local newspapers called constantly. Even homeowners who had defended the board online began deleting their posts. Then another surprise arrived. Greg Collins, the HOA treasurer, asked to meet. We met in Sarah's office. Greg looked exhausted. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. He placed a thick binder on the table. Sarah opened it. Every page contained financial records, invoices, emails, bank transfers, board approvals. Then she reached one payment. $100,000. Greg nodded. The developer called it consulting.
What was it really?
He swallowed. Money. For what? To keep supporting the expansion plan. Sarah looked directly at him. Are you saying board members were paid? Greg lowered his head. Some of them. Were you? No. Then why stay? I kept thinking they'd stop. He looked at me. They kept saying your ranch would eventually belong to everyone. I asked the question that had bothered me from the beginning. Why not just ask to buy it? Greg gave a sad smile. You said no. I was never asked. You were, your father was. Everything suddenly made sense. Years before my father died, someone had already tried. And when he refused, they simply waited, waiting for a different opportunity, waiting for a different generation, waiting for people to forget. But my father had kept every document, every survey, every receipt, every boundary marker. He had trusted paper more than promises. For the first time in my life, I understood why. 3 months later, the courtroom was full. Homeowners filled every seat. Reporters lined the back wall. The judge entered precisely at 9. Linda Marshall sat beside her attorney. She no longer looked confident. The expensive smile was gone. Sarah began calmly. She didn't exaggerate. She simply presented evidence. The deed, the recorded plat, county maps, survey reports, the fake meeting minutes, the certified letter claiming unanimous approval, the hidden development proposal, the handwritten notes, the financial records, the secretly recorded meeting. Then came Greg's testimony. He admitted the vote had never been unanimous. Melissa Grant testified next. She admitted she had objected during the meeting. Another board member confirmed Linda instructed everyone to remain silent. Finally, Sarah played the video. The courtroom became completely silent. Linda's own voice echoed across the room. If he's here, he'll object. Then, the official minutes will reflect unanimous approval. Nobody moved. Nobody whispered. Nobody looked away. The judge removed his glasses. He slowly turned toward Linda. Then he asked the question that changed everything. If the vote was legal. He paused. Why did you hide it? Linda opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her attorney stood. Your Honor. The judge raised one hand. No. He looked back at Linda. I asked your client. Again, silence. After a long moment, the judge spoke. The evidence demonstrates a deliberate effort to interfere with private property rights through false corporate records, concealed meetings, and deceptive communications. He looked across the courtroom. This court will not reward that conduct. These rulings came one after another. The HOA's vote was declared void. Every notice against my ranch was permanently canceled. The fraudulent records were ordered removed. The HOA had to pay my legal fees. Punitive damages were awarded. Additional civil claims against individual board members were allowed to continue. The county referred evidence of falsified records to state investigators. Then came something I never expected. The homeowners stood, not all at once, one by one. Many apologized. Some admitted they had believed the rumors. Others said they never questioned the board because they assumed someone else had. A week later, homeowners voted to dissolve the entire board. Every director was removed. A completely new board took over. Their first official action wasn't another rule. It wasn't another fine. It wasn't another vote. It was a letter, hand-delivered. The new president stood on my porch. "I'm not here to ask for anything." He handed me the envelope. Inside was a single page. "On behalf of the homeowners of Cedar Ridge Estates, we apologize for the actions taken against you and your family. Your property has never belonged to this association, and it never will. We hope with time we can earn back the trust that was lost." There were over 200 signatures. I folded the letter carefully. "I appreciate this." He nodded. "We should have asked questions sooner. So should the old board." A month's passed. The subdivision changed. People waved again. Children fished at the public pond instead of staring through my fences. Neighbors bought hay from my ranch. Some even volunteered during branding season. The anger slowly disappeared. One evening, I stood on the same front porch where this nightmare had begun. Scout and Daisy lay beside my boots. The sun settled behind the red barn. Cattle drifted peacefully across the pasture. The white fences glowed gold beneath the Texas sky. I looked toward Cedar Ridge. The neighborhood was quiet. No survey stakes. No construction crews. No threatening letters. Just homes. Exactly as they should be. My grandfather used to tell me something every time we repaired fences. A fence doesn't keep good neighbors apart. It reminds everyone where respect begins. The old board spent years believing secret votes could erase a deed. In the end, they discovered something far more permanent than any HO rule. Truth leaves a record. And once that record reaches a courtroom, no secret stays buried forever.